Hey, welcome. Today is an important day because we're talking about a really powerful topic. It's really about the shame of winning, the shame of being successful. And the reason I want to talk about this is because for a very long time, I felt like I was alone in this. I felt like it was just me who felt like I would get some digs or some jabs, whatever I was really standing in my power or I was accomplishing bigger things, especially when I was accomplishing those things without a lot of effort, when things just seemed to flow, when it seemed to come naturally to me. And I would experience some negativity, not just professionally, like with colleagues. I would sometimes experience it with family members, with friends, people I was dating, that kind of stuff. And so I think this is a really important topic to talk about because I rarely hear anyone talking about it, but it seems to be a phenomenon. I call it the wounded leader syndrome, because what happens a lot of times is that if you don't understand what's going on, it can cause you to recoil. It can cause you to feel ashamed of your success and of your accomplishments. It can cause you to, not want to talk about what you've been able to achieve because you're afraid that you're going to be, braggadocious and that, people will feel threatened by you, like all this kind of stuff. And you might think that it's just something small that you can like brush under the rug, but it actually can show up in your business in many ways, right? It can show up as, sales that don't stick. It can show up as not commanding the fees that that your work is worth. It can show up as, putting up with some stuff in your client relationships that you don't like. It can show up as putting up with stuff in your personal relationships that you don't like. Right, so it spills over in so many different areas. So this is not something that we can continue to stuff down and act like it's not there. So for those of you who are joining, thank you for being here. I hope you can hear me. I'm using a different microphone today. So if there's any problem with sound, just let me know. And I'm going to jump straight into the training. Let me just introduce myself first. If you've never been to one of my trainings before, my name is Desiree Stafford, and essentially what I help you do is make the money and impact that you know that you're capable of. Cool? All right, so if you know someone who will benefit from this topic because it resonates with you and you think there's someone else that you know that could also benefit, please invite them to attend this training. I have a feeling it's going to be really powerful because I've got a couple of different things that I want to talk about. All right, so we're going to be together for about 20 minutes or so today. In that time, I'm going to share some teaching points with you, 3 specific things that you can do to overcome the shame of winning, right? To overcome the shame of, achieving on a higher level than maybe your peers or the people in your social circle are achieving, so that you can give yourself permission to really go there, right? To play full out, to perform at the level that you know you're capable of. So we're going to be talking about 3 specific things that you can do today. And I will be answering your questions towards the end. So if you have any questions, type them into the comment section and I'll address them. Cool? All right. So the first thing that you want to do, if you're feeling, and I'm going to share some probably personal stories as I typically do about this stuff. But if you're essentially feeling that when you are in your power, when you are direct, when you are confident, when you are achieving or making big leaps, let's put it that way, or experiencing big strides forward, that it's not welcomed, that, people might say things that you can interpret as being negative, or being a diss or a dig or a jab, then one of the first things you actually want to do is understand where those people are coming from, right? It probably sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's important that you do understand that most of the time, when people are doing that, it's unconscious, right? Because what they don't even realize is that they're bumping up against their own insecurities, right? And so they may not know how to deal with that. And so it may come out as, an off-color comment. I've been called a bitch before by former coworkers. I have had, people tell me that I was selfish and I was greedy and I was this and I was that, simply because I was focused on, moving myself forward, right? So people will say those things, and at the time when I didn't understand it, I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought, oh my God, like me just showing up and being me, right? I'm not trying to compete with anybody, not trying to be better than anybody, just happening to be better because apparently I was putting more attention to, specific things than other people were. Didn't make me a better person. It just made me better at that particular task, right? But if I didn't understand that, which I didn't for a very long time, I would internalize it and think there was something wrong with me. And so you don't want to do that, right? What you want to do is say, okay, wait a minute. This is that person's issue. Thanks for the love, by the way. This is that person's issue, right? So I'm not going to internalize this and make it my problem, make me wrong for it, or make myself feel guilty or ashamed of who I am because of it, right? It's very important that you get that. And it's interesting because it doesn't seem to matter at what level you're at, right? We can still experience this. We can still experience it, especially when it comes from people that are closest to us, right? I've had it come from many family members, mom, dad, sister, brother, right? I've had it come from, like I said before, coworkers. I've had it even come from mentors and coaches, okay? And I really don't believe that any of these folks meant me any harm. I think that they just did not know how to handle their emotions, right? And so it spilled over in a very ugly way, okay? So what I had to learn how to do is understand that that's their stuff, not mine, and not take it on, not internalize it, okay? Because if you internalize it, what does that make you do? It makes you recoil from your success, like I talked about before, where you don't feel like you can share what's going on for you. And it's important that you do acknowledge what you've accomplished, right? Because if you're not acknowledging what you accomplished, what you can tend to do is then minimize who you are and what you're capable of, right? And then you have that big gap between the rock star that everyone sees you as and how you actually feel about yourself, right? This is one of the reasons why so many people who are brilliant feel like frauds, right? Because they don't even allow themselves to acknowledge the things that they've accomplished. Because if they do, they're afraid of the reaction that they'll get, right? And this is not just exclusive to me. I know, and this is one of the reasons why I'm having this conversation, because I've had many clients over and over and over again share similar experiences with me, where they either got it from their parents, right? Their mom or their dad. They got it from a sibling. They got it from a husband or wife, right? Just like these little digs, these little jabs. And if we're not conscious, it can eat away at us, right? It can eat away at our sense of confidence, right? So you want to be very aware of it. So anyway, know that it's other people's insecurity. They're dealing with their stuff, so do not internalize it. Now, knowing that it's their stuff, you don't have to take it. Right? You don't have to put up with it. You can either address it depending upon the relationship. Like, is this someone that you want to stay in a relationship with? If it is, then have the difficult conversation. Say, when you did this, I felt this way, right? Not about blaming or whatever. It's just acknowledging what happened, right? And, you know, if it continues, if it happens over and over and over again to the point where it feels like the relationship is becoming toxic, then you have to make a very difficult choice, right? Are you going to stay and put up with that shit, or are you going to leave? Right? But only you get to decide that. But I wouldn't just blow up one day and leave. You want to address it, right? You want to call people out on it, because again, they may not be aware of what they're doing, right? That's our reality. So many people are so unconscious that they're not aware of how they're reacting in a situation or how it's being perceived by you. So just have the conversation, okay? And then you grow, by the way, by having that conversation. I remember I had a former client who she was in a very toxic relationship at her job. She was a real estate agent, and she was in a situation where she was selling like lower end homes, like not expensive stuff, like very median income type of homes, which is fine, but that's not what she wanted to do. She really wanted to be selling higher end homes. And she wasn't making the kind of money that she wanted to make, and there were some other things going on. And I remember when she told me about it, I was like, oh, hold on, that's not okay. That's not okay. That's not going to fly. And what I found out was that her broker was actually stealing leads from her. Now, this is a very accomplished woman. This is a woman who had won awards for, you know, her salesmanship, right? So, but she was allowing herself to stay in a situation where her broker was stealing leads from her. She was, you know, selling houses to clients that she didn't like all kinds of drama. So we worked on the same stuff I'm talking to you about, like really helping her understand that it was their stuff, not hers. And that even though the broker was doing something that was pretty egregious, wouldn't you agree? It wasn't about her. It was about what the broker was doing, right? So once we could allow her to detach from that, not take it personally, she exploded. Okay, she went from selling, you know, on average like $250,000 homes to $1 million homes. She sold millions of real estate since then, and obviously she left that brokerage and she found a new home, right, where she was being supported. So, and that actually speaks to a point that I'm going to address in the third speaking point today. So just, you know, like you have to decide, you know, are you going to be allowed to really thrive in your environment or in the relationships that you're with? If not, and you've tried having those conversations and you know what you need to do, right? Now, the second thing is, right, you need to look at yourself in this scenario. So first step is to understand where other people are and understand that it's their stuff, right? So you don't want to internalize it. The second thing you want to do is look at your own stuff, right? Because you're part of this equation. You're part of the relationship. You are the one who's attracting this experience. And the question is why, right? Now, are you attracting this experience because it's a way that you get to continue to play small, right? If you get to continue beating the drum or the story, or, you know, repeating the story to yourself that, you know, every time I try to succeed, you know, my mom has words for me, or my father has words for me, my husband, you know, reacts in this negative way, or my kids do something, or my clients, whatever, right? If you keep telling yourself that story, so you recreate this experience, what is that about for you, right? Are you recreating that experience consciously or unconsciously as a way to play small? Is that your out, right? You need to examine that. The second possibility is that you actually enjoy that experience, whether you are aware of it or not, right? Because sometimes ego gets in the way, right? Or ego goes into play, I should say. And you're kind of like, yeah, you know, so many people are intimidated by me. And you kind of like, you know, get something out of that, right? So you need to be looking at where you actually are in this process. Like, are you at a place where you're using it as an out to not go for what you really want, right? And that has a, you know, some remnants of victim consciousness in it, right? Are you using it because your ego likes the fact that you being you accomplishing big things, you being in your power, you being assertive, or whatever the case may be, is intimidating to others? Do you like that? Like, do you get some kind of rise out of that, right? The third alternative, I should say, is that you're really done. And perhaps you attracted this experience to let you know that you're done. I had something very similar to this happen, which is what promoted this conversation or prompted this conversation for me, where someone recently said to me, you know, you're really bossy, and so you're probably triggered by what I'm saying to you. And it's funny now, right? It's interesting because in the moment when I heard it, there was no reaction. I wasn't mad. I wasn't like, oh, she's intimidated by me, you know, like that thing. It wasn't anything. I was like, oh, that's so interesting, right? I was going to say, you know how I like to curse, but I'm going to hold it back. It was so interesting to me. And I was like, yeah, there's no reaction there. And that's where we really want to get. When we know we're done, there is no reaction, right? And so sometimes we attract those experiences when we're at a place where we're done, and we just need the opportunity to know that we are done, right? And I was done. So figure out for yourself where you're at. That's the second phase of this. Are you at a place where you're using the experience of intimidating others to, you know, to give yourself an out so that you don't move forward, to hold yourself back, essentially, to play small? Are you using it because your ego likes it, because you like the idea of being intimidating towards others, right? Or are you done? And so you attract that experience just so you can, you know, see, is there any emotional, you know, currency here for me? If there isn't, then you leave, right? Or not necessarily leave, but it kind of like rolls off your back, right? So now the third thing, if you have tried to understand where the person is coming from, whoever's taking the dig or the jab or whatever, we call these haters sometimes, right? It depends on what terminology resonates most with you, right? But if you feel like maybe they've verbally attacked you, or maybe even physically attacked you. I mean, I personally have never been physically attacked, but I can imagine that some people may have been, right? But if you've ever felt made to feel wrong, let's put it this way, because of who you are being, not because you're trying to be better than anyone, but you just happen to be, you know, a presence that others feel intimidated by. You know, it's interesting. I love The Office, right? And I am so late to the party that I'm now like catching up on like all of them on Netflix. And I was watching an episode with James Spader, and he was being interviewed for, I think, like the manager position. And it was so interesting to see Jim, who's typically one of the confident characters, totally like recoil in his presence, right? James Spader's presence, or his character's presence. And it was so interesting because typically I always think that, you know, women struggle with this, with, you know, when a woman is in her power, being intimidating to others. But it's interesting to see that men also experience it also. And that's what I saw in that episode, where Jim even acknowledged it. He was like, you know, I think the guy is a genius. He's brilliant, but he kind of creeps me out. Meaning that he was, he didn't feel comfortable in his space, right? And this happens. So again, this is why we're talking about this today. Anyway, so if you've tried to understand that it's the other person's stuff, not yours, and you don't internalize it, if you have looked into where you are, like what role you're playing in the situation, like what's going on for you, what the payoff might be for you, right? The third act, or the third piece of this, right, of overcoming the shame of winning, the shame of being accomplished, the shame of just being who you are, right? Especially if you're someone who's maybe heard things like, you're too much, that kind of stuff. If you want to overcome that, the third thing is you want to make sure you are in community with people who are like you, right? People who are equally high-powered like you are. People who are running a race as fast as you, if not faster than you, right? Because those folks get it. Those folks are not going to be intimidated by you. Those folks are going to cheer you on. Those folks are going to call you out when you're playing small, right? So it's important that you find that level of community for yourself. That's one of the key things that helped me actually shift, because you can feel alone if you're experiencing this and there's no one else talking about it, right? Because for the longest time, that's how I felt. I'm like, I don't get it. What's wrong with me? Because it felt like I was getting it from many different directions, both personally and professionally, right? So it's important you find that type of community. I will tell you because of my experience, when I create my communities, whether they're paid or whether they are free, my goal is that everyone feels that it's a safe space to be as powerful as they are, right? I had a client come into my mastermind recently, and one of the things she said was she wasn't sure if she was in the right group. She was like, she was so intimidated and blown away by the other women in my mastermind, yet at the same time, this is an extremely powerful woman herself. And we welcome her and we support her, because that's the type of environment that I want around me. I am not into competition. I'm not like, I don't believe in this person is better than that person, whatever the case may be. A lot of people seem to be, right? A lot of people seem to be, but that's not something that I welcome in my environment. So it's important that you find an environment for yourself, and I'm going to plug either one of my programs or my free Facebook group as an opportunity for you, if you're looking for that type of environment, for you to be able to show up, and thanks for the love, by the way, and really be powerful without feeling ashamed of it, without feeling embarrassed by it, without feeling that, others will be threatened by you, right? Because that's the kind of shit that allows us to hold ourselves back, not experience the life or the lifestyle we desire, not realize the big vision that we have, which means you're not making the impact that you're here to make, right? So it's important that you take every piece of this, because each piece is important, right? It's not just the community. It's making sure that you're doing all these other things, right? So that you can really allow yourself to shine. Because I cannot tell you how many powerhouses I see playing small because of this. And sometimes, it really gets personal, right? Sometimes I've seen so many women in particular fear that if they succeed at another level, because I work with people who are successful already, but if they succeed at the next level where they really want to be, they're worried that it's going to threaten their relationships, right? Maybe they feel like their husband's going to feel emasculated, or their insecurities are going to surface, and so, the relationship might fall apart. This happens to so many of us, right? So it's important that you understand, if you're not dealing with this, how it's showing up in your life and also in your business, so that you understand the importance of dealing with it, right? You can't continue to tolerate it, because what ends up happening is, especially for women who are high achievers, right? What ends up happening is you get to this place where you're living a life that's in total conflict. It's almost you're out of integrity, and you do feel like a fraud, because you're capable of more, but you're afraid of allowing yourself to experience that level of success. And so you just sit in this place of basically settling, of being mediocre, when you fucking know that that's not who you are, right? That's a painful place to be. Extremely painful place to be, right? It doesn't just hurt your bank account. It hurts you in so many other ways. And you model for the people around you. You model for the people in your family, whether that be your partner, whether it be your kids, right? You model for the people who look up to you, whether that be clients or anyone else in your community or social circle, right? This matters that you deal with it, right? It matters that you deal with it. Now, if you do want some support with overcoming this and also making the money and impact that you know that you're capable of, check me out at DesireeStafford.com/session. for a breakthrough session so I can help you work through this. All right, now, thanks for all the love, and let me go back and answer any questions. Okay, let's see. Let me welcome some folks. Hey, Matthew, how are you? Hey, Santiago. Hey, Trina. Hey, Leslie. Hey, Roderick. So, Roderick, you said wow. Wow to what? I'd love to know what that is so I can help you. All right, or explain if I need to. Santi says she's definitely, is it he? I'm not sure. But Santi says she's dealing with it, all right? If you're open to expanding on that, Santi, let's talk about that. So Roderick is asking Leslie if this sounds familiar. So apparently this has been a discussion. Okay, so Gigi, right? I love The Office. I'm so annoyed that that I'm just like joining the party. But I'm like that though. I like wait until a series is completely done and then I discover it. So it's interesting. Okay, so Gigi says a safe space to be as powerful as you are. Absolutely. So I hope, Gigi, you're in my group, my free group. I hope that's your experience in that group, right? Because that's what I really like to encourage. So Santi says that she feels so alone at times and it makes her not want to be this way. That's so important, okay? Because that's how I used to feel. I literally used to feel, and it wasn't just me. I remember in college I had a girlfriend who was the same way, and we would say to each other, like, why are we like this? Why aren't we just normal people, right? And then, you know, to do what I do now as a coach, one of the things that lights me up the most is really helping women, and I shouldn't keep just saying women. I say that because I serve women most, but I totally get that this is not exclusive to us as women. I totally recognize the men that are here, and I understand that it's not exclusive to us. But nothing brings me more joy than to help a person get to make the kind of money and the kind of impact that they want to make, live the kind of life that they want while being true to who you really are. Meaning not the watered down version of yourself, not the one that's safe to show up in public, but the version of you that you really are, right? And I think one of the reasons why it's so important to me is because it had been a struggle for so long in my own personal life, right? And I also witness people in my family struggle with this as well, right? So I'm really passionate about this topic. But I do understand the feeling of being alone because that's how I felt for a really long time. I felt like there's nobody else like me. And this is important that we address this because if you are in a business where you're serving clients, like you're needing to attract clients, if you feel alone, guess what that's going to do? It's going to be very difficult for you to attract the kind of clients that you want to support, right? Because what are you projecting into the universe? What are you expecting to be alone, right? And so that can show up if you're not attracting clients consistently, that could be part of it, right? So it's important that, again, that we look at all of the ways that these, you know, there are emotional challenges that spill over into places that are supposed to not be so emotional, but they do. We're human, right? So it's important that you look at that. Okay, so let's see. Thank you, Jordan. Okay, so Roderick said he was just agreeing with me. Awesome, thank you. Santiago says, how do you block the negativity from reflecting, penetrating your energy? So basically what I just said. So the first tip, let me go through what I shared with you guys. The first thing is when you're feeling, for a lack of a better word or phrase, if you're feeling attacked, if you're feeling that people are taking digs at you, if you're feeling that haters are coming after you, whatever term you want to use to describe this feeling of being shamed for being powerful or being shamed for being successful or feeling shamed of winning, right? And so you kind of like hold back a little bit. You don't want to talk about what you've accomplished, that kind of stuff. The way that you don't allow it to impact you is you do not take it personally. That's why one of the things I shared is that you really want to understand when people are throwing hate at you, right? If that's what you want to consider it, when that's coming at you, it is not personal, right? It's their stuff, right? If a person is feeling triggered because you're just being who you are, that's their stuff, right? That's their problem. So you don't want to internalize it. The challenge is not internalizing it, right? It's about being able to be in that space to feel what you feel, not make yourself wrong, and not allow it to become your problem, right? Because it's that other person's problem. So that's the first way that you don't allow it to affect your energy. The second way is, or it's actually part of the first way, if you notice that there are particular people in your life who are constantly throwing jabs. They're constantly taking digs at you. And you need to address it, right? You need to address it. Now, if you address it and it doesn't stop, then you need to decide, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay in that relationship, or are you going to leave that relationship, right? So that's how you don't allow it, because the reality is, if we constantly are getting what we perceive to be negative feedback, it will affect us if we allow it. If we stand there and we keep letting it come at us, right? I think Jennifer Lewis said something about, like, if you stay in the stink too long, you get used to the smell, right? So you don't want to put yourself in an environment where you're allowing people to constantly throw stuff at you. And I obviously don't mean physically, but you know what I'm saying, figuratively, like throw their shit at you, right? You don't want to continue to allow yourself to stay in that type of situation. So what you want to do is address, number one, you want to, that's not my stuff, that's their stuff, right? And so that's about, you know, your own boundaries, right? And then you want to make sure that you're addressing with people. And then if they don't change, because they really don't have to change, they can go on being who they are, but you have to protect yourself, then you leave the relationship if that's what you choose to do, right? But that's how you don't allow that negativity to penetrate you. And you also want to make sure you are putting yourself in an environment of folks who do support you, who do praise you, who do, like, you know, like, yeah, go, go, go. That's what you want, because you need that to counteract the negativity that you're experiencing, okay? So I hope that was helpful for you, right? And then also, the second piece of this was making sure that, you know, where's the role you're playing here, right? Because if we allow ourselves to stay in a situation where we feel attacked, we feel judged, we feel criticized constantly, why are we doing that, right? Are we doing that because we want to feel that that's a way we can, you know, continue to play small? We can use that as our excuse. See, that's why I can't go for what I want, because when I go for what I want, this is going to happen, right? Is that why you're allowing it? Or because everything is a choice, right? Or are you allowing it because you kind of like the fact that, you know, people criticize you because it makes you feel like they're intimidated by you and you like that? Or is it happening because you're at a place in your life where you're fucking done with it, right? And so the experience repeats itself so that you can see, how are you going to react to this? Are you going to react at all? Are you going to be triggered by it at all, right? So I hope that clears it up for you. Okay. So Roderick says social conditioning has ruined our mentality. I totally agree with that. I cannot scroll down anymore, so I don't know what's going on. Perhaps that was the last comment. I'm not clear because I can no longer scroll. But I hope you guys got a lot of value out of what I shared today. I think we went a little bit over. Yes, we did. So I'm going to wrap up here. But if anyone has any questions about what I've shared, please type it into the comment section. I will respond. If you would like my direct support with not only overcoming this kind of stuff, but also making the money and impact that you know that you're capable of, go to DesireeStafford.com/session. And until we do speak, I hope you guys are up to big, bold things in your life and in your business. Thanks for being here. Take care.